OK, political experts are warning that Trump's threats to deploy the military has created an extremely dangerous situation, that things could deteriorate very, very quickly. It is quite something, isn't it, to send soldiers heavily armed to meet protests in your own country. Joining us now, Otago University Professor of International Relations, Robert Patman. Robert, g'day and good morning to you.
Good morning, Duncan.
Is it unprecedented, though? Is it unprecedented, that sort of language from Trump as a president talking to his own people and talking to the protesters?
There is a precedent in 1992 when there was the Rodney King episode. Rodney King was chased by the police, then pulled out of his car and brutally assaulted, but it was caught on a camcorder. And the three of the policemen, white policemen, were acquitted subsequently, which caused riots. And George Bush, H.W. Bush Sr., made the military available to assist forces around Los Angeles. It was a nationwide protest which killed 63 people. But again, they were put there not so much as a primary force, but they were put there to support the National Guard. But what Mr. Trump is suggesting is different, which is the military will effectively, if the governors can't get the National Guards in their respective states to do the job, the US military will do it for them, in Mr. Trump's terms. Yeah,
not just do it for them, but be heavily armed. He doesn't just say the troops will be there to support you. He says they'll be heavily armed, which to me is in sort of aggressive tone. And to me, it's a way of front-footing this. I'm not saying that they'll shoot to kill, but I mean, what else does heavily armed mean in America?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and I think there's 2 points that could be quickly made. Firstly, Mr. Trump has had problems coming to grips with this whole issue in the last. It took him 7 days before he made a nationwide address. Previous presidents would have reacted much quicker. And it is astonishing, just on a human level, that a slow-motion murder of an unarmed African-American civilian caught on video. Most people expected the president to make a speech within 24 hours. After all, he's got sons and daughters. He knows what it feels like to lose people like this, and yet he basically tweeted for about a week, and most of the tweets were belligerent. He seems to be confusing cause and effects. There's a genuine cause here, which is a history of institutional police violence towards African Americans, institutional racism. And unfortunately, George Floyd is just one in a long line.
Well, it's well documented. Absolutely,
killings.
Yes.
In this process.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Look, it's well documented, and it's well fought for and fought against in America by that protest movement, which is huge, black and white. How the president didn't realise this was an issue. I mean, he's either tone deaf or he's got the wrong advisors, or both.
Yeah, and I think that leads to the second observation, Duncan, which is, in fact, the president is playing politics here. He described himself as a law and order president, whereas, in fact, many of the protesters are campaigning exactly on that issue. They believe that law and order is not being applied fairly. And of course, in a situation like this, there are people, agitators, both from the left and the right. We know that there's the far left and we know the far right are both involved. They're infiltrating these protests. But let's not get deflected by the symptoms. The cause of this crisis is the brutal murder of an African American, and what many people want, what people on the street want, and what many Americans want, is they want much tighter control of the police force in these situations, and that lethal force should be used as a last resort, not a first resort. And I think many people want the Justice Department to carry out independent investigations into killings of this sort as a matter of routine, to reassure people the police is working for everyone.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. If that was your child, this is the only test you need to do in my book. If that was your kid, how would you feel today? And would it feel like justice or an injustice? You know the answer to that, the injustice. Robert, I appreciate your time on the programme, International Relations Professor Robert Patman, Otago University. It's injustice. That's not justice.
No.
To have your knee on someone's neck for 8 minutes is not justice.